today to not just celebrate the 7th anniversary of LLF, but also to celebrate our collective vision on ensuring that every child in India attains foundational literacy and numeracy. To address the serious crisis in early learning and to achieve the goal of attaining foundational literacy and numeracy as envisaged by the National Education Policy, the Ministry of Education launched the National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading with Understanding and Numeracy, that is NIPUN Bharat, in June 2021. This resonates with LLF's vision of ensuring strong foundational skills and abilities of literacy and numeracy for all children. We have been working towards supporting 8 state governments in realizing the ambitious target of achieving universal foundational learning for all children by the end of the grade 3 by 2026-27. Now we have a special guest amidst us today, Srimati Anita Karwal, Secretary, Ministry of Education, School Education and Literacy, Government of India. I invite Dr. Dheej Hingran, Founder, Director, LLF, to introduce our special guest.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to introduce Anita Karwal, Secretary, School Education, also my batchmate, an IAS from Gujarat cadre. She was Principal Secretary, Education in Gujarat, Chairperson CBSE, and has a long stint in, illustrious stint in education. She's been the driving force behind the new education policy 2020, and all that's happened after that in terms of implementing it. And as mentioned, the NIPUN Bharat, which we'll be talking a lot about, foundational literacy and numeracy. She seems to be in a kind of crusade to bring about large-scale transformation in the Indian education system following the NEP 2020. She's one of the most dynamic secretaries of school education that I have seen, and I've seen over the past 30 years. She has to leave early, and therefore she requested to speak in the beginning, which is also good for us because what she tells us about NEP and FLN will set the tone for what follows. Welcome, Anita. Come.
Thank you, Dheer and Shweta. Thank you. Thank you, Shweta. So Shweta mentioned 3 things: celebration, connection, and conversations. We are celebrating the 7th year of LLF. Congratulations to the team for wonderful work. Connections. Dheer just mentioned, we are connected. We've trained together from Masuri days. I know him and his wife. Theirs is a Masuri marriage. And, and they are great people, very, very good-natured people. And Dheer has been a very dynamic presence in the education sector, in the government itself for a very long time. That is the connection. Aside from that, Dheer is also a member of the National Steering Committee which is preparing the new national curriculum framework, which we hope will be out just after the middle part of the year. So that is what we are working on. Now coming to the conversations, Shweta has mentioned, Dheer has mentioned. So NIPUN Bharat is something which we worked together on. In fact, Dheer also helped us a great deal in conceptualizing the whole scheme. When we were doing this, and I was having a lot of consultations with the states, because after all, they are stakeholders. And at that point of time, the pandemic was in full swing when we came out with NIPUN Bharat in the year 2021. On 5th of July, it was launched, as you're aware. It was just after the second wave. Pandemic was in full swing. In fact, when I did the stakeholder consultation with the states, some of the states came up to me and told me कि मैडम ये second wave चल रहा है, हम pandemic देखें कि हम foundational literacy और numeracy देखें. And that is when I had to tell them कि ये दोनों एक ही चीज़ है. आप ये देख लोगे तो आप pandemic को भी solve कर दोगे. So NIPUN Bharat was something which we conceptualized for a 5-year period with the idea that the NEP gives us that unless there is FLN achieved for every child at grade 3, the rest of the NEP is absolutely useless. That one sentence actually sums up the whole NEP and the whole thrust on NIPUN Bharat. I want to tell you what all has happened since then. Firstly, Manish will be coming here. He may talk about it, but I thought I'll tell you about 2 or 3 things. I'll spend about 10 minutes because you would be discussing a great deal on the language issue and the issue of FLN. So we have been working with the states to prepare a perspective plan. Proper planning has to be in place. Like Rukminiji was just telling, that it is possible to have solutions in the education system of India. I totally believe in that. Anything which is done systematically, which is planned on the basis of evidence, which is monitored with the help of technology, which is given the right kind of capacity building at all levels, it always works. So the perspective plan is something which we have been working on with the states. When my joint secretary will come, he will tell how they devised the perspective plan, how we did a lot of consultation on this. And you'll be glad to know that majority of the states have now a perspective plan in place. It took a long time for us to handhold the states. In fact, when we did a workshop with the states in the month of November, December, we called about 6 to 7 states in a group. We called the state secretary, the SPD. We even called the diets, the SCRTs, the BRC, CRC, and a few teachers. And then we sat down with them and then we tried to understand. Even at that stage in November, December, we found that their understanding was not very clear about foundational literacy and numeracy. I cannot say with a guarantee that even today it is 100% clear, but I must say that the journey has begun. That is the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing is that we have been actually laying a lot of stress on mother tongue, the regional language, the mother tongue, particularly the mother tongue. What we have been seeing in NAS, what we experienced in PISA, this is a very interesting experience which I would like to share with you. So when we decided to participate in PISA for the second time, PISA was to be held in 2020, and as you're aware now, it's been postponed. And India's participation has also been postponed. So when we went for it, the system of PISA is such that they prepare the question papers, the items as they call it, in advance, and then it is sent for contextualization to the concerned country. So there are 2 or 3 people who are in the know-how of those items. Nobody else would know. So amongst those 2 or 3 people, I was there because CBSE was leading the PISA work. We found that even after contextualization, the language, the English language, was such that Indian children would not understand it. So we took it up with PISA. दैट हम चंडीगढ़ में कर रहे हैं, ये पंजाबी बच्चे हैं, पंजाबी बोलते हैं और हिंदी बोलते हैं. आपकी अंग्रेजी भी ऐसी है कि इवन आफ्टर कंटेक्चुअलाइजेशन दे विल नॉट अंडरस्टैंड. फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम दे अग्रीड फॉर एनी कंट्री दैट इन द ट्रायल टेस्ट दे वुड डू अ सैम्पल ट्रायल with Punjabi written on one side and English on one side. Let the child reply in English, but look at the Punjabi question or the item, and let us see how they fare against only English. So we had actually translated and done all the work until this happened. And that is something, it was a huge learning for us, because when this discussion was going on at the international level, Andreas was very clear that if the mother tongue is something in which the child thinks and speaks, then whatever medium of instruction may be there, whatever else it may be there, the child will not be able to perform or achieve the learning outcomes or do well in the competency-based items. That was a huge learning for us, and this was going on from 2019, as you are aware. Then the NEP came, and then we started working with states. Now the problems that the states are facing in terms of foundational literacy, numeracy, on the one hand, which has to be achieved, and the language issue. We did an analysis of the languages or the mediums of instruction that the country has. So there are more than 25 mediums of instruction in the country. There are some mediums of instruction in which there are only 1,000 children, some in which there are only 50 children, but they are there, they exist, and these are unique mediums of instruction. The most common one is Hindi, which is 45%. 77% of the country learns in regional languages. But it's about 20% who learn in English. Those 20% are mostly drawn from private schools. But there are certain schools, there are patches of schools in Chhattisgarh, in Andhra Pradesh, and in Gujarat, and various states which are state government schools, which are having English medium. So English is not really the issue. The thing is regional language. So already when there is regional language, then what is the issue? When we have gone deeper into it and we have interacted with states such as Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh and Odisha, etc., we have found that the local dialect or the home tongue can be completely different from the regional language. There are languages which have absolutely no connect in the neighboring blocks. And then, as Dheer has been constantly pointing out, then there are the border areas. So Odisha and Andhra Pradesh, for example, Haryana and Rajasthan, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. So Alirajpur speaks a dialect of Gujarati. It does not speak a dialect of Hindi, for example, in Madhya Pradesh. So these are the kind of issues which were coming up. Now, with the kind of resources that we have, we are not a very rich department. We have limited resources. And as you may be aware, that the resources of the state government mostly are spent on teachers' salary. Because we give a very minuscule portion of teacher's salary. In fact, the amount that we give to the states, about 50% goes to teacher's salary and 50% for quality work. Most states are such that for qualitative inputs, they depend only on the central government funds. They spend nothing from their side on qualitative inputs, most states. So with that kind of a background, we do not have enough resources to deploy teachers in the local mother tongue. However, with a lot of discussion with Dheer and with the states, now some states have started doing the following things. One, they have started having bilingual, trilingual books, textbooks. So you will have, in one district, you will have one language along with the, the regional language. It could be Hindi or something else, side by side. In another district, it would be Hindi and another language, another dialect altogether, so that the teacher is able to, who does not know this dialect, is able to interpret for the child by using the mother tongue as the bridge language. So this is one thing which has started happening in many states. The second thing that has started happening, arrived from discussions with Dheer, was mapping of teachers. What are the languages that the teachers know? What are the languages that the children know of a particular region? Can we put them together if they are of the same language? This is a part of the perspective planning of the FLN exercise. And we are finding that some states where we are finding too many kids in the same dialect or language, and there are teachers who are able to speak that dialect, states are taking up the exercise of posting those teachers for the purpose of FLN to achieve the mission. We are only very worried that after the mission is over, what will happen? Perhaps the teachers will go back. So that is the second thing that is happening. The third thing that is happening is a lot of capacity building of the teachers, not only related to the language, but also related to FLN. You are aware that we have undertaken the Nishtha program, a special Nishtha program for the purpose of FLN. It has 10 modules, including a module on toy-based pedagogy, which has been specially introduced, and of course on literacy, numeracy, how to assess children in the foundational years. This was a huge issue for us. Even today, in the NCF steering committee the other day, one gentleman got up from one of the focus groups and he said, science में तो class 1 से examination लेना पड़ेगा. हम assessment वगैरह ये सब school based assessment हम नहीं करने वाले हैं, formative नहीं करेंगे, हम summative assessment करेंगे. Even today, that kind of understanding has not gotten, but our document very clearly says, in the foundational years, observation shall be the only assessment. There will be no other form of assessment. So continuous observation. To get this into practice is not very easy. Despite our nishtha, despite everything, I still get states coming back to us saying, हम तो weekly test ले रहे हैं, performance assessment tests, PATs for example. हम monthly ले रहे हैं, हम fortnightly ले रहे हैं, written test ले रहे हैं. It is putting a lot of pressure on our children. So my next point is this, that FLN also means joyful, engaging, participatory, and very interesting education for children. It doesn't mean tests. It doesn't mean pen and paper to be used continuously all the time for the purpose of tests, etc., but to be used for joy, for the joy of learning, which is something we are again working on. I don't know, I hope we are able to achieve it, because it's very difficult to get things changed which have been going on for the past 50 years, 60 years. So this is another area. The area of classroom transactions is something which we are insisting upon. That is something which is highly technical. In fact, in the National Steering Committee, we had discussed that we need to do a survey of kind of classroom transactions that take place across the country. There is no survey as yet. In fact, even NCERT has not done any work on this. And I can see Rukmini ji writing it. I'm hoping that she will do some survey. So what kind of classroom transaction should be there? What is the role of the teacher in that? What is the role of the head teacher? What is the peer group role in that? What should be the seating arrangement for foundational years? It's really, this is something which in CBSE I used to shout myself out that look at the seating arrangement. You are sitting here in groups. You will be interacting. Until Shweta was talking, I was interacting with Rukmini ji. And it gives me some sort of joy, to interact with my peer group. Can we not do this kind of seating arrangement? So these are the kind of things that we want to look at. We've asked some states to do some dipsticks about this. Hopefully we'll get some work out from them. Then there is the aspect of Vidya Pravesh. I suppose you are all aware of it, that the NEP also talks about 3 months school readiness program as soon as the child enters grade 1, so that if the child has had no learning from 0 to 6, no educational inputs, some kind of educational inputs prepare the child for what is coming in the foundational years. NCERT has come out with a wonderful document with a lot of stakeholder consultation on Vidya Pravesh. And meanwhile, the states have also adapted their own Vidya Pravesh. A lot of work has happened in the states in this. But once again, what we are noticing, I'm talking to you about the challenges because it's people like you who would be able to give solutions at the field level. Once again, what is happening is that Vidya Pravesh is being treated like a course, like a module. Bacche ko itna textbook pura kara do, ye sab cheez. As if that is going to bring the child to a certain level in the foundational stage. It doesn't happen like that. Vidya Pravesh the idea was to gently ease the child into school education, which is instead of making it a course, a module, a study. So these are the challenges that we are facing. Most of the states have adopted Vidya Pravesh. I would like to, probably I shouldn't be doing it, but politically it may not be correct, but I think I should mention that there are 4 or 5 states who are not with us, on working with us on NEP, on NIPUN Bharat, on Vidya Pravesh, on NCF, nothing. I don't want to name the states, you already have it in your mind. There must be some political compulsions for which they are not with us. But the rest of the states and the union territories, they are very highly motivated. The last challenge that I want to name to you is motivation does not help. Educational administrators have to have the capacity to deliver the vision of the national education policy. And we find that educational administrators down the line have probably not understood to the extent what is a national education policy. Manish, when he was doing this workshop on FLN, I still remember a teacher got up and she mentioned that how she's trying to bring in joy in education at the foundational level. And once she decided that she will take the children outside within the school campus and sit under the tree and learn because the weather was very good. And the education inspector happened to come there and he gave her a show cause notice. So here is a teacher who's trying to deliver according to the NEP, and here are the educational administrators led by yours truly, who are not able to gauge the changes, who are not keeping up with the times. So what we have decided is that we are coming out, we won't call it Nishtha because Nishtha is for teachers, we'll call it something else, but a Nishtha for educational administrators compulsorily to be, all educational administrators from state level down till BRC, CRC level, everybody to be trained on what is NEP, what are the expectations from us. Recently, we adopted 10 districts. The ministry has adopted 10 districts, which were the lower performing districts in terms of NAS in grade 3 and 5. So these 10 districts are spread across the country in all the 5 regions. I remember when we were having a conversation with the collectors, because the district magistrates have been given the job of achieving 4 or 5 goals in this. Basically, it is achieving learning outcomes of the state level. Whatever the state level learning outcomes have been achieved, that district has to be pulled up there in 1 year, and national level in 2 years. So when we were talking to the DMs who are leading this program, I still remember that Manish had to explain to them what is NER, what is GER, what is GAR, etc. Then we had to explain to them what are learning outcomes and some other terms. And when I told Manish, Manish, dictionary banao aur sabko bhejo. So Manish has in fact prepared some draft dictionary also of 200, 300 words. And the collectors openly, candidly told us कि हमको पहली बार समझ में आ रहा है ये सब क्या है, and that school education is a technical subject. Just because you've studied in school doesn't mean you know about school education. So what I'm trying to tell you is that educational administrators can become the biggest hindrance in whatever we want to do unless we are able to train them. Since there are CSOs sitting here, and Rukmini ji and Dheer and everybody else, maybe you would like to work on this as well. We are trying to work with the Capacity Building Commission on these modules. NCRT is preparing these modules. We hope to come out with the set of modules by July, August. And if you have any inputs in that area, because I feel that that is going to be a game changer. That once my 1.5, 2 lakh educational administrators are able to align themselves to the vision of the National Education Policy, I feel it would be a game changer. So it's not as if my interactions with the state secretaries, SPDs, SCRT, wahan to bahut gung-ho hai. But when you go down, then you realize ki it's not the same as it is at the top. So these are some of the challenges, and this is how we are trying to move ahead. And we hope that the NAS 2021 results are now streaming in, and we are seeing learning losses. Though the learning losses are not of a very high extent in some classes and some grades, but we are seeing learning losses across the board, across all states and UTs. I don't think there is, barring maybe one state who may have done well in certain grades, every other state has not done very well. So we are going to come out with the report at the end of this month. We hope that the remediation will begin in full force with the help of the learning recovery package that we have recently announced in January for all states, for all grades, including foundational literacy and numeracy. We also hope that the 16,000 exemplar schools that we are setting up, we have recently gone to the cabinet with a request for being able to set up 16,000 exemplar schools, which will showcase every aspect of NEP and will become the leader in its area, in its neighborhood. So we hope all these things put together would be able to energize, inject more vibrancy into the system. Thank you very much.